All right, so we've just read Cat in the Hat, and now we're going to talk about Freud's id, ego, and superego. Cat in the Hat knows a lot about that. Sigmund Freud, you soon will find, had the key to our psyche, aka the mind. So this is Sigmund Freud, okay? But for today, we're going to think of him a little bit more like this. Okay? And he was born in 1856. 1856. In the Austrian Empire, which is now the Czech Republic. Okay? He was the founder of psychoanalysis. Yes, Tony?
Are we supposed to be writing this down as you PowerPoint?
Yes, please, thank you.
ma'am.
Tony, while I have you, psychoanalysis is one of the academic terms on the top of your handout. Can you please read the definition? Nice and loud for everyone to hear.
Psychoanalysis, a method of studying and investigating the role of the unconscious mind.
Very good. So it's a way of looking at the mind and the way that our mind works. So in the early 1900s, Freud developed what is called the structural model of the psyche. Structural model of the psyche, which divided the brain into three parts. Psyche is another word on your academic vocabulary. Sierra, would you mind reading the definition from the top of the page?
The mental or psychological structure of a person, especially as a motive force.
Good. So we're looking at the way that your mind works and motivates you to act. So he developed the structural model of the psyche that divided the brain into three parts: id, ego, and superego. Id, ego, and superego. Okay? The first one is the id. Okay? Id is the part of the mind that we're born with. So as babies, we are born with the majority of our mind devoted to the id. And it's based on the pleasure principle. The pleasure principle basically means that your motive, what motivates you to do things, is simply what's going to satisfy your hunger. Are you tired? Do you need, in this case, a baby diaper changed? Okay? They don't care about reality or the needs of others. So think about it in the situation of an infant. When a baby cries at 3 o'clock in the morning because they're hungry, do they care that they're waking their parents up in the middle of the night? No. They don't have any sort of understanding that it's not completely convenient to wake your parent up in the middle of the night. They just want to satisfy their id and be fed, which is all that's important to them. Okay? As we move on, in the case of the Hat in the Hat, who seems to care only about their own satisfaction and pleasure and no one else?
The cat.
Hand? Chad?
The cat.
The cat. And why do you think it's the cat, Chad?
Because they only care about its own needs.
Yeah. So the cat in the hat represents the id because the cat wants to play all the fun games with the children, but he doesn't take into consideration that he's ruining the house and potentially getting them into trouble. He just wants to have fun and show his tricks. Okay? So in this case, the cat in the hat is going to represent the id. If we move on to the ego develops in the first 3 years of life. So by the age of about 3, you've developed the ego. And the ego starts to take reality into consideration. It's not just about you and only about you. You're in this world with other people, and you need to realize that. And it realizes that being selfish can hurt others. Okay? So one way to remember that is when you think about toddlers, when they're right around the age of 3, they really like to negotiate. If I get to do this, then I'll do that later. Or if I eat this, then that means I get to eat this. They start to take into consideration that they have to follow some sort of rules. There's others involved, their parents are involved, and they start to negotiate. If I give a little, can I get a little? So, if we're going to look at the short story, in the case of the Cat in the Hat, who tries to balance their own pleasure with an understanding of reality and the needs of other people?
Children.
Yes.
The children,
The children. And why do you think the children?
because they don't know what they really want. They
Right.
letting themselves go by the cat and then by the fish.
Good. So they flip-flop between following what the fish says and what the cat says. So the children represent the ego because they find the cat fascinating and they want to play the games. They're little children. They're entertained. But they also worry about their mother's things at the house. They see her gown being, torn down the hallway. They worry a little bit about whether or not this is okay. Good. Finally, the last thing that develops in our mind, according to Freud, is the superego. It develops after the first 5 years of life. And this is when we start to learn morals and ethics from our caregivers. Caregivers could be your parents, your kindergarten or your preschool teacher, your babysitter, your guardian. Yes? Okay? And what we like to think about to remember this one is, raise your hand if you have a younger sibling, or you've babysat someone who's younger than you. So oftentimes when they get right around the age of 5, they love to tattle. They love to say, oh, Jimmy did this, or somebody pushed me. They like to just draw attention to things that people are doing wrong. And it's because they've developed this high level of an understanding of ethics and morals and the difference between right and wrong. So, in the case of the Cat in the Hat, who acts as the moral conscience, or who tells us what is right and what is wrong? Bridget?
The fish.
The fish. Why do you think the fish?
The fish is constantly reminding them that it's not right and they shouldn't be doing this with their mother out of the house.
Good. Yeah. So the fish is representing the superego because he's constantly reminding the children that no one is allowed in the house when their mother is gone, and it's not right to make a mess. Okay? So let's look at the following situation. 3 students stay in Miss Ryder's room after class. When she goes to run an errand, they find the answer key to the next day's test on her desk. One student wants to copy the key and sell it to other students. Another thinks one peek at the answers won't hurt, but then he walks away. The last student states that cheating is wrong and leaves the room. So who is who in the situation? Raise your hand if you know the student who wants to make copies and sell them. What do they represent for the first Freud, Ben?
The id.
The id, good. And Ben, why would you say that it's the id?
Because they don't care about reality or the needs of others.
Good. All they really care about is the pleasure of getting money or acing the test, and they don't care whether it's right or wrong. Good. Now the student who takes a peek at the answers and then walks away, who would they represent? Yes, Joe.
The ego.
The ego. And Joe, why do you think they represent the ego?
Because they are going to cheat when they decide not to. Because something's wrong.
Good. So they're balancing the desire to know the answers, but also the fact that they kind of know that cheating is wrong. So they're kind of in between the two and balancing the two. What about the student who states that cheating is wrong and then leaves the room? Tucker.
Superego.
Okay, Tucker, and why do you think that it's superego?
Because they know cheating's wrong.
Because they understand that cheating is wrong. So he or she stands up to the other students and follows what he or she knows is the right thing to do. Okay? So we have the id, just satisfying their pleasure principle, which is acing the test, making some money. We have the ego, who is balancing the two. Okay, I want to get the answers to the test, I want to do well, but I also kind of know that this is the wrong thing. And we have the superego, who's standing as the moral conscience, saying, no, cheating's wrong, we learned this, we know this, let's leave the room.